Wow, I didn't have to say anything. This is a meditative group already. My name is Rod Bigelow. I'm Executive Director and Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at Crystal Bridges, and welcome. We're really excited that you're here. The rain has stopped. But there's no better time to be in the building at Crystal Bridges than when it is raining. It's a wonderful space to enjoy art. I'd like to begin today's conversation with our Indigenous Peoples Acknowledgement. At Crystal Bridges and the Momentary, we recognize our role as settlers and guests in the Northwest Arkansas region. We acknowledge the Caddo, Quapaw, and Osage, as well as the many Indigenous caretakers of this land and water. We appreciate the enduring influence of the diverse and vibrant and contemporary cultures of Indigenous peoples. We are conscious of the role of colonizations that museums have played. As cultural institutions, we have a responsibility to engage in the dismantling of historical and systemic invisibility of Indigenous peoples past, present, and future. We choose to intentionally hold ourselves accountable to appropriate conversation, representation, connection, and education to facilitate a space of measurable change. Thank you. I wanted to thank our presenting sponsor for the portal and for the Wellness Festival, the Pat and Willard Walker Foundation. Please join me in thanking them for their incredible support. And we also have Black Hills Energy here today. Thank you for your support. Clap. We're going to jump right in with introductions because I know you want to hear from Alice and Arianna. I'll just do introductions. Arianna Huffington is the founder and CEO of Thrive Global, the founder of the Huffington Post and the author of 15 books. In 2016, she launched Thrive Global, a behavioral change technology company with the mission of improving health and productivity outcomes. She has been named to Time magazine's list of the world's 100 most influential people and the Forbes most powerful women's list. Her last two books, Thrive, the third metric to redefining success and creating a life of well-being, wisdom, and wonder, and The Sleep Revolution, Transforming Your Life One Night at a Time, both became instant international bestsellers. Most recently, she wrote the foreword to Thrive Global's first book, Your Time to Thrive, End Burnout, Increase Well-Being, and Unlock Your Full Potential with the New Science of Microsteps. Arianna is here with us today. And philanthropist Alice Walton is deeply committed to the advancement of art and wellness. She founded Crystal Bridges as well as the Art Bridges Foundation to expand access to American art in Arkansas and across the nation. She also founded the Alice L. Walton Foundation to increase access to arts, improve education, enhance health care and well-being, and advance economic opportunity. Alice's transformative experiences in the arts led to an interest in wellness and how art, nature, and the spaces around us shape and improve our lives. Alice established Heartland Whole Health Institute, a nonprofit organization that addresses physical, mental, emotional, and social well-being by working with healthcare systems to redesign healthcare delivery. Alice also founded, she's in the business of founding things, the Alice L. Walton School of Medicine. We call it AWESOME, that's the acronym, which will offer a 4-year medical degree granting program that integrates traditional medical education with the arts, humanities, and whole health principles. Slated to open in fall 2025, the school will be located right here on the museum's campus. Please welcome Alice and Arianna to the stage. They're having a shoe competition this afternoon. I don't stand up, sorry. Those introductions are pretty incredible. You have both been working so hard in both arts and wellness for so much time, really with the focus on access for both of you. And I wanted to just take a step back for both of you to your origin moments a little bit as to why you've decided to do this. So, Arianna, what compelled you to found Thrive Global and to write all these amazing best-selling books?
Well, first of all, let me say how incredibly happy I am to be here. I was lucky to be here in 2011 when the museum opened, and it has been a part of my life, especially after my youngest daughter, who was studying art, decided to write her thesis on art and accessibility featuring the Crystal Bridges Museum. And she, of course, became famous in her college when Alice Walton gave her an interview for her thesis. I also want to say, if you see me not moving my hands, which is very unlikely for a Greek woman, that I broke my shoulder, my right shoulder, so I can only move the left hand, which is why I was telling Alice that it was a great excuse to acquire a number of capes. And I told my orthopedic surgeon, it happened a month ago, I said, I'm perfectly happy to cancel April, but I cannot cancel the beginning of May. I so much wanted to be here. So for me, actually, it all started with a fall again. 2 years into building the Huffington Post, I collapsed from exhaustion, burnout, hit my head on my desk, broke my cheekbone. And as I went from MRI to echocardiogram, they were trying to figure out what was wrong with me. They actually diagnosed me with burnout, which at the time was not a term much in use as it is now. So that started me studying the phenomenon of burnout and seeing how our culture had basically glamorized living in that breathless way, and even saw burnout as the price we pay for success. And I started covering these issues exhaustively on the Huffington Post. I wrote these 2 books, Thrive and The Sleep Revolution, on the subject. But by 2016, I didn't just want to raise awareness on the topics. I wanted to help people change behavior. And that's when I decided to leave the Huffington Post and start again, launching Thrive. And I must say, Alice and I were talking about that earlier, I really believe that it's now in the zeitgeist, that a lot of these things that Alice has been working on, the connection between healing, health, the arts, behaviors, finally has its moment. It's in the zeitgeist, and we have an opportunity with what you are doing here, with the hospital, with the whole health institute, to really demonstrate an incredible impact on health outcomes by having a holistic approach to health. Science and ancient wisdom together. This is what we've been missing. And that's one of the reasons why I'm just so excited to be here and to see everything that you are building, Alice.
Thank you, very exciting. Alice, access to art has been your driving factor in founding the museum and the work that you've been doing, but wellness was always there, but it has become more and more pronounced. Talk to us about the journey that you've been on with that art and wellness space, with all the work that you've been doing most recently.
So first I have to, this one, tell you about my shoes. Miss Jewel's kids in her program painted these shoes for me. So they will now be my standard uniform from here on out, because there's nothing I could wear that they don't go with. Now, what was the question?
I knew you would answer your own questions up here, so I'm just a prop. So When you first started thinking about your commitment to access to art, that's why you really created the museum. But wellness was there in the beginning and has become more and more pronounced over time. Tell us about your journey in that.
Yeah. So, you know, I obviously, as most of you know who have been here for any length of time, we didn't grow up, my generation did not grow up with museums as a part of their lives. And I, you know, I was just like, and I think this has helped us, Rod, but, you know, I never felt comfortable in museums, even when my mom took me over to Tulsa or up to Kansas City. They weren't for me and my kind of, you know, I just felt that way. And so when I really started thinking about what I could do that could really make a difference in this part of the world for people, it was all about what can we bring to give access that people don't have that can really change their lives and make a difference in their lives. And to me, it was art. It was pretty simple. And art has always been, I mean, I did watercolors. I'm terrible. I'm an amateur. You know, but they're mine. And I actually, I had a terrible accident back in the early 80s. Ended up with a chronic infection for 12 years and 30 operations and in and out of the hospital. And it was really searching for ways to survive the anxiety, the fear of not feeling good for 12 years, of one surgery after another, of really a phobia of hospitals. And so it was a journey of survival for me, and my watercolors became a part of that. So I'd take my watercolors with me every time I went in for another surgery, and I'd paint where I wanted to be, not where I was. And it was just through little things like that, you know, I learned meditation. I'd actually learned that in college, believe it or not, but left it long ago. And but I was just searching for ways things that could help me survive. And that's how I got into yoga. That's how I got into meditation. And that's really my big connection with art. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Both you and Arianna have talked very much about the healthcare crisis that's happening in this country. Arianna, I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about how you think about that it's not only national but a global crisis, and how do we think about engaging in that conversation and making a difference?
So actually, Alice and I did a conversation with Dean Lloyd Minor at Stanford about this. And I said that normally my role is to calm people down. But when it comes to discussing the state of healthcare, not just in America, but around the globe, I sound like Cassandra. You know, I want to sound the alarm because right now we are spending over $4 trillion in America, 17% of the GDP, up from 5%. So then the amount of money we're spending, both nationally and self-insured employers, is skyrocketing, and the health outcomes are getting worse. So where is this going? And I don't think we have the same sense of urgency about addressing the problem, moving, as Alice has been talking about, into value-based care, including daily behaviors. This is kind of my passion. And again, looking at the data, our genes are 10% of our health. Medical care, which includes drugs, surgeries, everything, is 20% of health outcomes, and daily behaviors are 36%. And yet they're not being taken as seriously. People pay lip service to it, and they are not just for prevention. 133 million people in this country already have a chronic disease, so we can't just focus on prevention. They are necessary to optimize the management of disease. And these 5 behaviors, you know, how we sleep, food, movement, stress management, and connection, are absolutely central to our health span, our lifespan, you know, what Ali said about her watercolors. That's part of reducing stress. That's part of connecting with something deeper in herself. And the amazing thing about all that, it's hyper-personalized. I mean, if you asked me to do a watercolor, I would be incredibly stressed. You know, my blood pressure would skyrocket because
You just take a minute.
I'm so bad at it. And that's the point. You can't have one-size-fits-all behavior change recommendations. You have to know each person, find out what moves them, what they need to be nudged for. But once we do that, and now with AI, we really have the ability to create this high-personalized coach, then we have an opportunity to fundamentally change outcomes and change the trajectory of healthcare. Because if we don't change the trajectory of healthcare, we are in serious trouble. And remember, Cassandra was right. The Greeks were hiding in the Trojan horse. And, and one more thing here is that when I was at the Huffington Post, I always wanted to put flesh and blood on numbers. And what puts flesh and blood on what's happening in our healthcare is a story that the New York Times actually wrote about Austin, which is becoming the amputation capital of America for people with diabetes. And they had a picture of a man, a 39-year-old man, Robert Perez. He's a record producer, 39. And he was being fitted with prosthetics. He had to have his leg amputated 4 years after he was diagnosed with diabetes. This is an incredible failure of the healthcare system. Diabetes is a completely manageable disease. And yet, last year in America, there were 150,000 people who had their legs amputated. Can you imagine what that means? Not just the cost.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So would the doctors have made as much money if they didn't amputate the legs?
Exactly. That's really, I mean, incentives are superpowers. And the incentives in the healthcare industry are perverse. As Lloyd Minor said when we spoke at Stanford, we don't have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system. So that's why I will say it many times. I'm just so grateful, and Dean Sharmila is here, for what you are building here. Because it's not just going to change outcomes in the region. I think it's going to provide a template for how we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tragic example of the system. And Alice, I think you're hyper aware of these kinds of moments, these kinds of systems and the behaviors in which are created. You've created 2 organizations, the Heartland Whole Health Institute and the School of Medicine, to take this on. Can you tell us a little bit more about each of those and your intention around them?
So I really felt like if there was one thing I could do with the rest of my life, it was do my best at trying to create an example, a successful example of a transformed healthcare system. And I really feel like this region is the natural place to do that in. I think that the self-insured employers are one of the key levers, financial levers, to change from fee-for-service, which is please get sick, please need a surgery, don't take care of your diabetes and we'll amputate. You know, it's not that docs have bad intentions. I'm not trying to say that at all. But when you have a system that incentivizes waiting until you get sick to pay people, That's what's going to happen, and that's what we have happen. So I think really, you know, to me, we really won't be able to change anything if we don't change the financial incentives around how the healthcare systems are compensated. And that simple change is basically from the current fee-for-service. Just to give you an example, over 50% of all surgeries have been documented as unnecessary. Over 70% of all tests have been documented as unnecessary. When the system incentivizes excessive use, what else does it do? It also creates a system that encourages you to know that it's the healthcare system and the doctors and the pharmacies that are responsible for fixing you, right? Wrong. But that's the way the current system works, and that's where the incentives are. So we created the Heartland Whole Health Institute 3-4 years ago, I guess now. Time flies when you're having fun. And really the focus of the Institute is education and awareness about raising the level of the need for individuals to be responsible and take the initiative with their own health. Educating the communities. We've got some coaching projects going on with the community clinics currently. And then the other major effort is to work with the healthcare systems in the region and the major self-insured employers so that they move to value-based payment, which means they get paid a certain amount to keep you healthy, and not to fee-for-service. So those are and then the other thing we're doing is we're working very closely with the state. Sarah Huckabee, I'm thrilled to say, has just announced a major effort and focus on maternal health. Since we're 50th, that's probably a good thing, isn't it? But all of these things are fixable. It's not a sad news story. We can fix them, but we've got to change the incentive structure in healthcare. We have to train doctors differently. We have to realign the payment structure of both the federal and state systems so that keeping people healthy, people are paid to keep people healthy. Right now, a psychiatrist or a mental health therapist makes about 25% of what other specialty docs make in the current fee structure. So again, it's the incentives that are perverse, therefore nobody practices here, right? That's why we don't have any. So I think it's, you know, we all need to be aware of these things because we need to support a fundamental change in what's valued in our healthcare system by our state government and our federal government. And we are actively working on legislation that will try to address some of these issues. And then the other thing is how do we train docs? Believe it or not, today many med schools don't even have basic nutrition courses because the role of docs is to fix you once you're broken. And so we started the awesome. Sharmila, stand up, please. Sharmila is the founding dean of Awesome, and our job is very simply to create a new generation of doctors with empathy, that know how to listen, and they're going to learn how to do that through art, through nature, and docs that understand technology and can utilize the incredible leaps in technology that can allow us to have support systems that aren't in person. So we really believe that AI and virtual care is going to be one of the key components to, again, driving down costs and raising access and quality. One-on-one doesn't work. You can't scale it with the cost structure in the healthcare system. And so we have to look to technology and AI. You know, there's so many great apps out there, Arianna, but so that's basically it. And then we're working on bringing specialty care to the region, and I'm hopeful we'll have a big announcement here in a couple of months. We've been working on it for about 4 years. So.
Wow. Okay, now she's baiting us. That is amazing, Alice. It's incredible that you're taking on all of that spectrum. You mentioned technology. Arianna, at Thrive, you've been really working with technology to create new ways into that preventative and self-care space. How's AI affecting that? How's it making a difference?
Well, I'm really excited, as I know is Alice, on the possibilities with AI to truly democratize and scale healthcare, because we have to approach the problem from every angle. What you are doing for state and federal changes, how you train doctors, but also how we can help people take agency over their own health. So one of our sayings at Thrive is, health is also what happens between doctor visits. Because even if you have a mental health therapy appointment every week, even if you see your doctor twice a year, the question is, what happens every day? How is your sleep? We know this sleep is foundational to our immunity and to the way we deal with disease. You know, there are amazing scientific studies on how sleep deprivation exacerbates the growth of cancer cells, for example. So at Thrive, the AI health coach that we're building is trained on the latest peer-reviewed science about the impact of behaviors on health. We actually don't have any wellness people doing videos or sharing information. We want hardcore scientists and doctors because we have to elevate the role of behaviors beyond wellness. And I'm a big proponent of wellness, don't get me wrong. But in order to actually have doctors and the medical establishment take behavior seriously, we need to focus on all the peer-reviewed, validated studies that show the impact. Food. Food is key. We now know that ultra-processed foods and sugar, and again, we stay on what is universally accepted. We don't take sides on, are you keto, are you vegan, whatever. Can you reduce ultra-processed foods and sugar? There is absolutely no one in the medical establishment who would disagree. But how do we make it easy? That's where our behavior change methodology that we've developed over the last 7 years with a great group of scientific advisors chaired by B.J. Fogg from Stanford is focused on what we call micro steps, tiny daily incremental steps. Because if you go to your doctor, and even if they care about behaviors and they say to you, Rod, you know, Rod, you got to go to the gym and exercise and go on a Mediterranean diet. What does that mean? You know, how do I go about it? You need to break it down into very, very clear steps in every area, whether it's food, sleep, stress. My favorite, for example, sleep microstep, if you want to hear about it, is can you pick a time at the end of your day that you declare the end of your working day and mark it by taking your phone, turning it off, and charging it outside your bedroom. You know, your phone, Rod is not happy with that. Rod, not a problem. Alice is not going to call you in the middle of the night. We can get a promise out of her. But the point is that again, science tells us that during our day, it's all about control, solving problems, making things happen. Sleep is about surrender. So we need to separate ourselves from this instrument, which is not really a phone, because nobody ever calls anybody anymore. It's like a nuclear weapon with all our projects and problems. So if it's hard, just start with one night. Pick one night and see the difference. But so everything is broken down into tiny steps. And one of my favorite steps, and actually we have something to show you, is what we call resets. Again, based on the science that stress is unavoidable. I'm sure there's absolutely nobody here who doesn't have stress in their lives. But cumulative stress is avoidable. And it is cumulative stress that's the problem. That leads to high blood pressure, dysfunctional behavior like binge eating, binge drinking, etc. So we created these 60-second resets. We have hundreds of them on the Thrive platform, based on the neuroscience that tells us that it takes 60 to 90 seconds to move us from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system and out of the fight or flight system. And my favorite thing is to create your own personalized reset with things that give you joy. You know, your children, your pets, landscapes you love, art you love, and a piece of music. And we just signed a deal with Universal Music that we can use 60 seconds of favorite songs on the Universal Music catalog to include in the resets. So we are going to show you my personal reset, just to give you an idea and see if you want to create yours, and we're happy to help. We are going to create personal resets for Alice and for Rod. So shall we show mine? Here it is. So that was only 60 seconds. But even though you don't know my children or my grandson, who made an appearance at the end, it changed the mood, because it suddenly connected us with something that gives you a glimpse of my life and reminds me of what I'm grateful for in my life. And in moments of stress, we know again from neuroscience that gratitude and anxiety cannot coexist. So if we remind ourselves of what we're grateful for, even at times when we are upset, depressed, whatever, it's a countervailing force. And music, you know, before I could use that song, before we had the deal with Universal Music, we were talking about Yo-Yo Ma earlier. I had called Yo-Yo Ma and I said, can I use Ave Maria? You playing Ave Maria? Because, you know, otherwise you can't share it, you know, if you don't have the rights to the music. And he said, here, go ahead, use Ave Maria. So what I love is that all these 60-second resets are so different, and we use them also at Thrive. You know, we start meetings with spinning a wheel, and one of us plays the reset, which brings us closer to each other, especially as we're living in a hybrid world. So this is just one example of something that doesn't take long. You know, if you tell people, go meditate for 20 minutes, they may roll their eyes at the beginning and say, I don't have time. But nobody's going to tell you they don't have 60 seconds.
It's amazing. I've done it, and it's great. I'm not showing it, but.
I wanted Rod and Alice to show them, but we'll do it next time. Promise?
I think that's really refreshing and a very simple way in which to do a reset. You've talked about this quite a bit. I'm also interested in a couple things both of you and Alice has said. You said, Arianna, you live life as if everything is in your favor. And Alice, you say it in a slightly Arkansan way where you say, all the eggs are in your basket. I am interested in how you manifest that every day, and how do you actually, the harder part, how do you change to that frame of mind when things maybe aren't going your way? Alice, you want to go first?
Wee, that's a long one. You know, I had a wonderful daddy, and he just loved to try things. And I don't think the word failure existed in his vocabulary. He messed up all the time, you know, but it was just trying something that didn't work that helped him find a better way to go, right? And so to me, it's all about, my favorite way to put it is 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Just make sure the 2 go forward and the 1 goes back. But anytime I start out to do something, I know that I'm going to make mistakes, that I'm going to go down wrong paths, I'm going to hit dead ends, I may fall off the trail or the ladder. Lord knows what's going to happen, you know. But it's just a process of finding and keeping at it and going until you find the right way. And there's not a wrong way. For the things we need to do that can really help improve our lives and help our mental health, it's a process, you know, and just look for 2 steps forward and know that the 1 step back's there, but it's a minor detail. So I think that's the way I'd put it.
That's great. Arianna?
I love that. Actually, I have a recent example with my broken shoulder, because literally on May 3rd, I was with Alice at Stanford, and you know, everything seemed to be going great on so many fronts in my work and my life. And then on May 4th, in my own home, I fell down some limestone steps and broke my shoulder and fractured my knee, which I've almost forgotten because it's better. And then I immediately started putting, I mean, the pain, as you know, of a broken shoulder is pretty excruciating. I started focusing on all the things that I talk about and I truly believe in, including Rumi's live life as though everything is rigged in your favor. So what's the favor here? It's pretty well hidden. And little by little, you know, sometimes the favor doesn't reveal itself right away. I mean, like it took you a long time to see the ordeal you went through with all the surgeries and the pain as what led you to what you are building and the way you are changing the world now. And it wouldn't have happened without it. But again, you didn't see that immediately. And I definitely didn't see it immediately. But I saw gradually that because I had to give up doing a lot of my things, you know, I canceled all my engagements, I delegated things in running my company, and I said to myself, I want to focus on only what is mission critical. And for me, the most important thing right now is building this AI health coach. So I literally, that's all I did. And I was so utterly focused on it, plus getting better, And so there was something like that happens when you drop a lot of things that clutter our lives. All our lives are cluttered by things that we think we have to do, maybe we don't, but somehow there is a certain momentum. And when you are forced to suddenly stop and take stock, it's really quite a powerful thing. I mean, it's almost as though we all should do an audit of our lives. Maybe New Year's Eve is a good time. Some of us did it during COVID. I try and do it during big birthdays. I have one of my saying, which is you can complete a project by dropping it. You know, sometimes we start... You know, we start projects and, you know, they may no longer be relevant in our lives, but part of us feels, oh, we have to complete it. No, we don't. And it's very, very liberating. And like you said about your dad, my mom had the same approach to failure. You know, she used to say, failure is not the opposite of success, it's a stepping stone to success. So that way, it gives you a different approach to risk-taking, and anytime you start something, there are never any guarantees of success. But it gives you that resilience about dealing with obstacles and mistakes and failure along the way.
That is amazing advice from both of you. Thank you. We're gonna, before we answer a couple questions for the audience, we're gonna do a little speed round of questions. Are you ready? Okay. Alice, what is your favorite artwork? Sorry, what artwork in the Crystal Bridges collection helps you connect with wellness? And this one's coming to you, Arianna, next.
Oops, a lot of them. You know, Joan Mitchell's wonderful painting from, I believe, 1952. It's untitled, but I got to live with it for about, I don't know, 5 or 10 years before the museum opened. I'll never see it again, by the way, in my house. It's pretty popular here. But I named it because I get to know these paintings and they become my friends, right? And so I named it Creating Harmony from Chaos. But if you look at that painting, it's a very powerful painting, abstract expressionist, powerful strokes, a million different colors. But there's this incredible harmony that ties it all together. And so that would be one. I will tell you another one that was just up recently, and it'll be coming back to Crystal Bridges for the new opening. And that is a painting that it's taken me 10 years to get for us. It's one of Edward Hopper's last paintings, and it's called Sun in an Empty Room. And it is one of the most, I get goosebumps every time I see it. So it'll be here for you soon.
Love that. Arianna, you want to answer the same question?
So I'm going to pick one, a sculpture, because it has movement, and I'll tell you what it means to me, and that's Alexander Calder's Trois Noirs sur un Rouge. And I think what it means for me is to remind ourselves that movement is the heart of life. And I found that the greatest pain in my life was when I clung to things, you know, when either good things or bad things. And I had a dream once that I've turned into an affirmation. And my affirmation is, and I use the word God, but you can change it and use universe or higher power or whatever you want. You know, let's not get hung up on the word, right? But my affirmation is, I'm on a train going home to God, enjoying all the scenery along the way. And you know, on a train, some scenery is gorgeous and some scenery is ugly. You go through trash heaps and parking lots, and you go through beautiful lakes and mountains, but the train moves on. And as long as you see life about movement and moving on, it's just very different than when we cling to something bad happening and we can't give it up. That's why I'm a big believer in forgiveness, because, I mean, we hurt ourselves when we don't forgive. And also when we cling to good times, because so many things are fleeting. And anyway, that's what that sculpture means to me.
Amazing, great choices. What do you're both lifetime learners. You continue to invest time and energy in this space. What are you listening to now, or what are you reading now that you'd love to share?
Well, I just started a new Bucky Fuller book, you know, Fly's Eye Dome, that we have here. I love Buckminster Fuller. And he was such a, someone called him an original man. He's a Renaissance man, you know, just an out-of-the-box thinker. And so I love to, philosopher, inventor, engineer, architect, you know, who knows what Bucky was. He was everything. So that's what I'm doing right now. But I can't wait, because Arianna just gave me a new book today on the Greek myths, right? So that's going to be my next one.
Yes, I told her that she's Hermes, so she's going to read about Hermes. And Alice, you got to tell them about your sweater.
Yes. Oh.
So that's our motto: onward, upward, inward. When we go inward, recharge, refuel, renew ourselves, then we can go onward and upward without burning out and with more joy. You know, I find that sometimes we think we have to wait until everything is perfect before we can allow ourselves to feel joy. So how can we feel joy in the middle of the messiness of life, where nothing is ever perfect and nothing will ever be perfect? So in terms of books, you know, I'm a great rereader. I love rereading books. I think so often, you know, we are so much about the new, the latest, what has just come out. So I'm doing that too, but I'm listening to Anne Lamont's new book on audio, which is amazing. And I'm rereading Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, which is my favorite kind of leadership book, because, you know, he was the emperor of Rome for 19 years. He dealt with everything: betrayals, invasions, a 13-year-long plague. But he wrote this book about how to remain unflappable. He was also a Stoic philosopher in the middle of everything. So whenever I talk to CEOs who tell me, Arianna, you know, what you're saying, I can't do that, I'm so busy. I said, well, you know, Marcus Aurelius was busy too. So as we're changing the culture, I think Marcus Aurelius is a great role model, and he always talked about the inner citadel and the inner space in us from which we draw our strength. And that's why also I just want to say, since there is such an obsession now with going to Mars and discovering outer space, I personally believe inner space is much more exciting than outer space.
Great perspective. Okay, I think this is my last question for you. What's the worst advice that you've received about either art or wellness, or both?
It's easy. Ain't easy, but it's worth it.
I think for me, the worst advice about wellness is the assumption that it's warm and fuzzy, that it's kind of a nice to have. Yeah, it's a nice, if you're a corporation, it's a nice benefit to give to employees. If you're an individual, yeah, it's a nice thing to do once you've done everything that you want to do in your life. And if we can recognize that it is absolutely crucial, essential, it is the foundation of our health, our creativity, our capacity for joy, then it changes how we value it.
You know, I got to expound a little bit.
Go for it.
I've been thinking recently, and Arianna and I were talking about it today, but you know, and I'm really trying to understand what was it that finally allowed me to really get comfortable with myself and get to where I could manage the things I was dealing with. And I think it's really important to allow yourself to become vulnerable. You know, we spend so much time protecting ourselves and our image and what people think of us. And when you really think about looking at a piece of art or really spending time with yourself without any thoughts, what it takes in both of those situations is an openness kind of the soul, so that you really become vulnerable, because you can't receive if you're blocked. So to me, I think, you know, looking back, I wish I'd understood that earlier. It took me a long time to kind of get there, but I think that's one of the secrets, is that and you know, to have wonderful relationships with our family, with our friends, with our neighbors, we have to expose ourselves. So I really think that's one of the key things that I've learned in life.
Incredible. You can clap. Clap. Thank you both. A couple questions. This is a hard one. So, as a healthcare worker, this is from our audience. As a healthcare worker, I've witnessed how slowly change happens in medicine, often taking decades to adopt best practice. How do we mainstream whole person wellness into healthcare at a speed that meets the urgent need?
Boy, howdy. That's a good one. You know, good things sometimes come in bad bundles, and COVID was a bad bundle, but it has exposed the underbelly of our healthcare system, and it really, we all know, as do the healthcare systems know, things are broken. And so I think it takes all of us demanding transparency from the system. Do you do that when you go to your doctor? I bet you don't. Start doing it. Ask them, how much is this going to cost if you end up in the hospital? I mean, I think we have been trained to just accept whatever happens in the healthcare system. And we have to untrain ourselves. We have to demand transparency. We have to do our homework and decide for ourselves after a couple of opinions whether or not we need that surgery or that medicine. So I really think taking ownership is a large part of that, and it's going to take the American public saying, I want something different, and I demand something different. And so I think it's up to us.
Great. I like a fired up Alice. Arianna, I think this is a good one for you, and I think you've given us a couple tips. But if you're having an anxious day, what do you do to deal with it?
So first of all, I have fewer anxious days if I've gotten a good night's sleep. I think there is a direct correlation between sleep deprivation and anxiety. I'm wearing an Oura ring. I track my sleep. And I find that when I'm sleep deprived, I'm more likely to be anxious. I'm more likely to be reactive when bad things happen. I'm less empathetic. I'm less creative. I'm basically the worst version of myself. So I think a good day for me starts the night before. And if I'm anxious, I really find resets are an incredible way to reconnect with my center of peace, strength, and wisdom. And I mean, you saw my personal reset, but we have hundreds of resets, which the key is the breathing bubble, because breath is our superpower. Most of the time we breathe unconsciously. So even taking 60 seconds where we stop and breathe consciously, it's a game changer. You know, the Navy SEALs, in moments of stress, use something that they call box breathing, which is, you know, you inhale to the count of 4, you hold to the count of 4, you exhale to the count of 4, you hold to the count of 4. So if it's good enough for the Navy SEALs, it's good enough for me.
Fabulous. I'm going to ask, I think, a final question. Well, there's a question all about Sharmila. What attributes are you looking for new students? How can I become a student? So find Sharmila after that's up. No, she doesn't have. Oh, do you want to answer? You can answer later. Final question really is: imagine that the Heartland Whole Health Institute is completed. The expansion of Crystal Bridges is completed, and awesome, the medical school, are now all operating in 2026. And Arianna comes back to the stage and comes to the museum.
Do I have to wait until 2026?
No, this is imagining you've come every week. What kind of experience would you expect, and describe that moment for you?
Well, for me, there is a kind of serenity here that is incredibly powerful. We think of serenity as something soft. It's not. So the fact that it's going to be extended to building a medical school that shows the interconnection between medicine and healing and nature and the arts, I mean, it literally gives me goosebumps. It's so transformational, and the impact it's going to have on the world cannot even be imagined. Again, partly because the world is ready for it, partly because so much of what we've done has not worked. So I just want to say how incredibly grateful I am to you, Alice, for your vision. But, you know, a lot of people have big ideas, but you execute.
Two steps forward and one step back.
Anything you want to say to that, Alice?
You know, let's all go on this journey together, because it's going to take all of us, and I need your help.
Thank you, Arianna. Thank you, Alice. Thank you for being part of the Wellness Festival. Come back. Thank you.